Very few people have asked my husband about his home country since being back in the US, and I'm not surprised because that's kind of how it goes when we come back here. It's always disappointing. Like on the rare occasion he talks about France, it's only because he's like making an effort to insert himself into a conversation. But very few people ask. I mean, none of like my friends will ask, but in general, people that he meets just have a complete lack of curiosity. And I've done this too, so I get it. One of the things that is it's very telling of the U.S. American centric mentality that we are raised with. And it's like really bad with like white U.S. American, because that just like we're the center of the world mentality is already there, and then you put whiteness, and then if you're a man on top of that, there's zero curiosity unless you've whatever been working on that or traveling or something, whatever. Let me just give a couple of examples of how like it's really sad. When we first arrived in Orlando, all like the Disney people have to be super nice. Like the Disney workers are a case study, honestly. Like, so helpful, so nice, never like. But this one guy, this like, whatever, old white man, was like, "Hey, where y'all from?" I'm like, "Well, I'm from the U.S., but he's from France." "Oh, France. A couple years ago, I went to Spain, and I've been to Italy, and we just had such a good time." And then starts talking about Spain, and then Italy. And I swear, I'm sure I have done this. I'm sure of it, because in my mind, in the fore, it's like, "Oh, it's close to France. Oh, it's Europe." Those are such like entirely different cultures, much like in country. If someone chose any country in North America and was like, "I've been there," I'd be like, "Great." The thing is that it's like it's not malicious. It's well-meaning. It's that human desire to connect. Also, whatever. Like it's just part of customer service. Like, oh, like let's talk. Let's have a great talk. At no point did this man ask him anything about France. And the only questions people ever ask is, what does he think about the U.S.? That's it. Like, I mean, whatever. Some of my family will ask things or whatever, but in general, there is no curiosity whatsoever. That is kind of built into being the default in your mind, right? So as a white person, I'm the default. So once I realized that, started to realize, oh my God, there's so much I don't know about. And I don't even and I need to take the time to care about knowing about things other than what concern me and center me. The same way we ask, like men will very rarely watch movies or TV shows that are written, directed, and produced by women and about women's story, unless like their partner makes them, unless like cishet men. Be very clear who I'm talking about here. As a cishet woman, I'm so tired of like heteronormative garbage that I actively seek out stories that are not heteronormative, because I don't like purity culture and all the rules that I've been taught around. It wasn't until meeting people who had different experiences, different stories, different beliefs, especially who were, had to fight hard to be able to live, love openly, and it's still a risk to do that, especially in these times. You know what I mean? Like I've started to realize that like I need to actively seek out stories that are not centered at all, sometimes even involve at all people like me. You know what I mean? That's why like reading books, which I've been trying to, like through fiction, I have learned so much. Like fiction teaches so much empathy. Stories that aren't written by white people about other people. Just to be clear on that, because a lot of these stories, just like when men, like so many of the rom-coms are written by men. That's why they suck. That's why they're like, you hate all the characters. It's like, or the story is like, just settle for a hobo, date down, and all the other messaging. And so the only really the only conversation that we've had so far that was explicitly about France that somebody else started wasn't, or at least when we were in the South. Now that I'm visiting some of my friends in other places, it's different. And of course, I'm not talking about some of my family. But for instance, somebody said, like literally was like the only question they asked about France, and this is so telling of the U.S., they're like, hey, we got a question about France. And I'm like, uh-oh. Because I've understood where this person was politically, and I'm like, this isn't going to be good. I thought it was going to be about, like, I don't know, whatever. I was not expecting this question. So is Brigitte Macron really a man? Like, what do you think about her being a man or something like that? And I was like, oh my God, that's the question. That's the question. All the things you could ask about France, you're going to ask about a right-wing conspiracy theory that has been peddled. So basically, real quick, I was like, first of all, that's like not true. But if you want to know if the real story is grooming a child while he was in school, if you want to know anything about her, like look into her story of being like 40, 41 and trying to date a 15-year-old student. Especially because, like, you know, we know the right is so concerned about children's safety, especially from, you know, egg-shade predators. So that's it. Again, I'm not talking about my close friends and close family who, of course, want to know about him and us and our lives there and the culture and all that stuff. What I'm saying, in general, there's nothing. There's no questions. There's no curiosity. If anything, it's like some wild-ass stuff. And so in my personal journey of, like, unforking my brain from patriarchy and white supremacy culture and all that other crap, one of the hardest things that I've been having to do lately is continue to decenter the United States. Because, I got like 40 years of indoctrination of that. Decenter this U.S. American point of view I didn't realize was still there. It'll come out just like patriarchy does in these little ways where I'm like, oh, right. This is a very U.S. American way of looking at this or that or whatever, and this should not be the default. Anyway, read this book, The Empathy Gap. Delusional Influencer just published it. I got to pick up my copy when I got to Florida, and I've read parts of it, but I've been doing nothing but traveling and hanging out with people because I haven't been back to the U.S. in 4 years. So I will be digging into this book when I get back to France and quoting it, I am sure. If you want to join me on that, please buy this. I'm going to tag her. But this kind of work, this book, is going to help you with if you haven't bought it already. This also comes down to empathy, putting yourself in, taking yourself outside of yourself and caring about other people's experience in lives, even on the most basic level of asking them about their country instead of being like, what do you think about us? Or asking unhinged questions about conspiracy theories rather than anything legit or about like humanity and real connection. Again, I have done that before. It's like, I know part of this is just wanting to connect with a shared experience or a point of connection. With the lack of curiosity, the lack of asking more questions, it's very telling. It's very telling. The more that this administration does, the more isolated U.S. Americans are going to be. That exceptionalism is going to probably get so much worse among especially certain U.S. Americans. So this is a good place to start, and especially because the immigrants in the U.S. are obviously targeted the most. And I swear, if people knew anything about their lives, cared anything about their personal lives and their experiences, all the crap they've been to just to get here and go through all the BS that is involved with immigration. It's so hard to immigrate to another country, even with a lot of privilege. Whatever. It's how we're raised. We're taught as a country, and especially those of us who are raised without really real community and in that individualistic mindset, especially mostly white people. Anyway, got a few days left, but I got a lot to say. More later. Went to Washington, D.C. and saw that big phallic thing and lots of other stuff, but I noticed how clean the subways are. Went to Smithsonian stuff and Julia Child. I honestly didn't know who this lady was really until, like French cuisine anyway. Saw some other stuff, transportation stuff, interesting stuff. I don't know, museums are cool. Anyway, the museum got inside an old subway trolley thingy, and these cars are kind of cool, especially this thing. How many times did I ride in one of these vans?
and a big orange thing. And the people look at the statues. This little girl is so depressed, and it kind of makes sense because I think it's the 50s. Anyway, that's my comment song about DC. Got more stuff all in my Patreon for more stuff. Comment song. This is the comment song DC.